I guess I saw this report and I was like, what is it that you're trying to say? Because Adam Schefter's not a dummy.
Right. Well, it's strange that, like, Adam Schefter's not a dummy. I agree with you there. I think he's putting this out on behalf of the Cleveland Browns. And as I said in the first segment, like, I feel like this is the Browns realizing what the rest of us have been saying. And Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, put out a really good kind of column on the situation. And I do agree with it. I have to agree with it. I don't think that the Browns were ever intentionally sabotaging Shedeur Sanders. I think that the Browns fell in too deeply to their own groupthink, understanding that they thought Shedeur Sanders was some sort of project quarterback and Dylan Gabriel was God's gift to football, whereas in reality, it could potentially have been the other way around, and that Shedeur Sanders and his raw tools are always going to give the team a better chance to win, whereas Dylan Gabriel is just flat out boring to watch. And while the Browns weren't trying to sabotage Shedeur Sanders, they certainly never celebrated him either, and they were treating him like a shorter term asset. Like, that's what I was talking about in the first segment. Like, they always talked about Shedeur Sanders, that in the 5th round it was tremendous value and all of this stuff. And like, okay, if you're talking about value when it comes to a quarterback, this is probably not a guy that you're looking at to being a long-term solution to anything. If you're repeatedly just talking about the great value that you got him at instead of his pinpoint accuracy, his big arm, the fact that he is a little bit more athletic than Dylan Gabriel, like, those are the things that they should have been discussing. And I think it took that 52-yard pass to Isaiah Bond for Kevin Stefanski to say, oh, this guy could play. This guy might be all right. And the rest of us have been screaming it from the rooftops all season long, but it feels like the Browns have finally come along to that realization that we've been imploring them to.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the Jason Lloyd article. I think I brought it up with us last week while we were doing this show, basically saying that, you know, they kind of wanted this to be a redshirt year for Shedeur Sanders. They didn't want him to play this season. I mean, it kind of tells you the idea that, again, it reinforces the developmental quarterback. He needs time to grow. So, I mean, if that was your thought process going into last week, was like, you know, he's a developmental quarterback. Dylan's not ready. We're going to play him. Obviously, you know, we know the ramifications, what happens if he comes out and looks good here. But I clearly think there was an idea that, hey, we're going to best prepare to Shedeur to actually start this game and perform well, which I thought Tommy and Kevin did a great job of last week.
Yeah.
But then you turn around and you watch him win. It almost feels like this was kind of just the Browns coming to the same page as everyone else. Like you said, it was them landing on this idea that, hey, maybe we should be giving this kid a look, which, again, like, we already assumed that was going to be the case when Jimmy Haslam said you were going to see both these guys play.
Right.
When I see Shedeur go out there and play it all, I kind of expected him to have a runway as QB1.
Here's the thing that's weird to me now, is the fact that this report is out there, it actually makes me lose faith in Kevin Stefanski.
Interesting.
Because it's like, what were you not seeing out of Shedeur Sanders that you saw in Dylan Gabriel? Why did we waste 5 weeks with Dylan Gabriel? Like if Shedeur Sanders plays well, I would, and like, I'm not, you know, I don't go to the pressers, all that, but like, if he plays well today against the 49ers, hey coach, Nick Padone, 92.3 The Fan, what were we doing with Dylan Gabriel 5 weeks? Genuinely, like, because if he plays well and now you've got this report out there that you're open to getting an extended look at him, well, wouldn't you want this organization of any is obsessed with data. They talk about data more than they talk about football. So wouldn't you have wanted 5 more weeks worth of data on a young quarterback that could be a solve to anything? The entire thing is very curious to me, and it makes the Shedeur conspiracy theorists kind of have a point, because what were we doing all this time?
See, I do wonder, and this is not like a full-blown defense of Kevin Stefanski and group, but I do wonder if they thought that this experiment was going to look probably not as bad as the Ravens game, but like, you know, more down that line rather than Shedeur going out there and playing like he did against the Raiders. I think that maybe he surprised, not everybody in that building, but I think maybe he surprised some people in that building, and maybe Kevin Stefanski was one of them in the way that he played against the Raiders. I mean, I'll be honest, I have full faith and full belief in Shedeur. I didn't think it was going to look that good in terms of like what he does poorly and his flaws and what he needs to fix. Now, Raiders weren't very good at creating pressure in that game, but I thought when they did, Shedeur handled it really well. I thought he got the ball out very quickly. Like, he responded to the things that he needed to do in order to be successful in the NFL with 1 week's preparation, with just the idea of, hey, I'm getting the start. And you kind of took all the things that made you, a kind of a question mark and the things that made people hesitant and threw those away for the most part last week. Like, I don't know that they don't resurface. I don't know if this is the week they resurface. I don't know if they don't resurface later this season. But for 1 week, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, even for the, just the Shedeur supporters, you sit there and you had belief. I think even kind of stunned some of us.
Dude, like, I'm not trying to be negative about this because ultimately I'm excited about this report. I'm a Shedeur Sanders guy. I always thought that he was probably the best quarterback in the island of misfit toys that they somehow manufactured together this offseason. But doesn't this report kind of prove that? Like, there was no plan ever. And like, that was evident to me when we have these rumblings saying that the real plan, the first plan A was going to be Kenny Pickett. Okay, so you trade away plan A because a 5th-round pick came calling? That's not a winning formula. And then now the fact that like he would never even say Shedeur Sanders' name in a press conference, and suddenly 1 week later he could be a solve to the rest of the season. Like, there was no plan. The Browns are buckled up on this roller coaster ride just like the rest of us, and I genuinely think they're trying to figure this stuff out by flying by the seat of their pants, Jake. Like, that's how I view this situation as a fan. Like, they would not, Kevin Stefanski would not call Shedeur Sanders by his name when he met with the media 10 days ago, and now I have a report from the NFL's top most respected insider that he could be a solution the rest of the way. I don't think they had any semblance of a plan this entire season.
See, I do think there was a plan. I just don't think we like the plan, and I think that the plan also, in a lot of ways, went off the rails probably by the time you traded Kenny, and certainly was off the rails by the time that Joe got benched after 4 games of football. Like, I think they went through with the closest thing that they had to that plan following, but we know that their idea wasn't start Joe for 4 games and then put him on the bench. We know the idea was probably not start Joe in the first place, so the plan kind of went haywire. Like, I think there was an idea to give Shedeur a lot of time to develop. They thought he was a developmental project quarterback, and we've seen one start of him. I'm not willing to crown him at this point yet. I think he's a really good quarterback, but we can't sit here and crown him and act like he's the answer for the Cleveland Browns. He played the Raiders and a bad Raiders team at that. But like, listen, I don't agree with what we've seen so far. I've made that very clear. I've continued to disagree watching Dylan Gabriel play football, and that's with me trying to be as objective as possible and as fair as possible. And all right, they're starting Dylan. Let's give Dylan the leash, right? Let's give him as much rope as we possibly can, because if Dylan's good, that's as good of an answer as if Shedeur Sanders is good. You're looking for a good quarterback.
Right.
We were fair in that idea. But as the weeks went on, I mean, there was definitely an idea that you continued to go out there and go, how is Shedeur not going to play better than this?
I guess my concern, though, Jake, is that like it was abundantly clear to everybody else, like back in camp, that Dylan Gabriel just was not it. So then, like, when you saw him make his first start against the Vikings, it was like, okay, whatever, you lose that game because there was a couple dumb decisions at the end. But then when he seemingly regressed with each and every start, and he started to look more and more overmatched and more like a guy that was probably 5'9" and less of 5'11", it made you wonder, like, why are we so obsessed with this dude? Like, the supercomputer, all this stuff, like, unplug it. Because Daryl Ryder was telling all of us, like, he was screaming from the rooftops that what he was seeing with his own 2 eyes was that Dylan Gabriel couldn't play. So why couldn't Kevin Stefanski see that? Could Tommy Reese not say it? Do they not listen to him? Was there nobody in the building saying, hey, this guy stinks. This guy's massively overmatched in every single game that he starts. Why are we doing this when we have a kid that's accurate? We have a kid with a big ceiling in Shedeur Sanders. Like, it makes me question the entire way that they go about their business, because they're so steadfast in their own thinking and they're so stubborn at times, Jake. It just drives me nuts.
Yeah, I mean, this does scream to me maybe a coaching staff, a group of people within the organization that maybe we're seeing things one way that they thought was the correct plan to go about, but clearly maybe got a little too deep into their thinking, too deep into the idea of you need to protect the football. I mean, I think that was clear with Kevin from the beginning, is that they valued protecting the football so much that it's definitely been a detriment to this team.
Yep.
And Dylan was the quarterback who allowed you to continue that idea as far as possible. And it's not Dylan did give you chances to win games. He left the defense and an opportunity to go out there and show their stuff. Just the offense so clearly was not good enough to keep that up. Obviously, Nick, we just went over the Adam Schefter report, and it's just ultimately confusing. I think that's the point where we reach where we're just completely in lockstep, is when you have to say these things, it kind of tells you maybe what the thought process was from the beginning. So I don't know. That's the part that obviously we don't like, because this is a report that I don't want to say it's clearly funneled from the Browns, but it sure does feel like it's clearly funneled. How else does Adam Schefter get this information other than someone in the building?
And
right?
it's you didn't have to do this. If I had to use one word to describe this report, my one word would be weird. Because you did not have to do this. It's common sense. Any football fan, I feel even when I was in fifth or sixth grade watching the Browns, and obviously we were going through the same quarterback gauntlet that we're going through now then, I would have looked at yeah, no kidding. I even would have known this then. If he continues to play well, you're not going to take him off the field. Duh.
Nick, it's why I clicked on the report and read the full article from Adam Schefter, because it was this has to be about next year. They'd be willing to, they'd be considering the idea of playing him next year, because why else would this be a report?
And that wasn't mentioned.
No, it had nothing to do with next season. It was all about this year, which is why I'm are they trying to scream us to something next year, or are they just this oblivious to the situation that was in front of them, that everybody else has also taken the idea already that, okay, well, you're going to give Shedeur maybe the rest of the season. Obviously, if you go through back-to-back weeks where Shedeur somehow flew off the rails and threw 8 interceptions in 2 weeks, you'd probably bench him. Just almost like any other team that has a quarterback that they're not paying millions upon millions of dollars, you'd probably bench that guy. But the idea that, hey, if you win games, if you play decently well, basically if you play better than Dylan Gabriel has, you're going to continue to start over Dylan Gabriel. It was you were kind of already trending that way, I would have thought, but maybe not. Maybe they would have just played Dylan the rest of the season. I don't believe that. I don't believe you could have sat there and watched the way that Dylan played and continue to play it.
So then that point makes me wonder, did they put this out there, as a message to Shador? But then I completely overrode that in my mind. I'm no way. You could just bring him into a meeting and tell him, hey, as long as you don't royally screw something up, we're not going to go back to the guy that was wildly overmatched in every single game that he started. So, this entire report is weird. Maybe it is just a primer to, okay, we're open to the idea of him starting for us for the rest of the season, and then maybe in 3-4 weeks do we get the report, if things continue to go well, that we're open to the idea of him being an answer in 2026. I wonder if this is a primer to that story getting ready to come out. The entire thing is strange. They've treated this guy tremendously strange since he's arrived. I am glad, as a Shedeur fan, he himself has handled this entire thing with grace and probably better than what I would have, because it's weird. The entire thing is weird. It's always been weird. And this report actually just gives the Shedeur Mafia a more artillery because it's strange.
You want me to go full tinfoil hat before we talk about this exact game?
Yes.
Could this not also be a sign of a crack in the foundation between the regime that we're looking at right now?
Oh, it probably is.
Is there not a chance that Kevin's basically expressing to him, to the organization, to Andrew Berry, to Jimmy Haslam, or whoever else that he needs to express this message to, that, maybe we do go back to Dylan now that he's healthy. Maybe we do go back. What if Shedeur plays poorly? Do we go back to Dylan then? And this is kind of, whoever's putting out this report, probably somebody higher up than Kevin, going, no, I think we're very open to the idea that Shedeur starts the rest of the season, to very clearly put that in Kevin's mind and basically put that in stone that, hey, the entire NFL world has this now. We're not benching the kid. I am not saying that's right. Again, it is tinfoil hat. This regime has shown really no cracks between Kevin and Andrew, other than you trade away the quarterbacks and I mean, would you have liked Joe to be the backup? Sure, maybe. But, like, is that really a crack in the organization more than just, hey, Kevin, it's a 1-year deal on a quarterback. We're going to get something for him. I don't really think they've shown those cracks, but this is definitely one that shapes up to look like it could be.
Yeah, I'll disagree with you there a little bit because I thought the Flacco trade was the first time that I was like, okay, they're not on the same page. Because Kevin Stefanski, like, when he admitted that he was surprised, like, Kevin Stefanski, of any coach that we have here in Cleveland, like, he is so particular about his words, and they're so paranoid about what they say. They're so paranoid about every little detail that gets out there publicly. So for Kevin to go up there and admit that he was surprised was weird. And then the fact that, like, that surprise led him to the uncertainty of who the backup was going to be. Like, was the backup going to be Shedeur? Was it going to be Bailey Zappi? And, like, they played that game. Like, I think it even played more to the conversation of, well, this was a decision that Kevin was just left in the dark on because he didn't even have a he didn't even have a backup plan for his backup quarterback of who that was going to be when that trade came down. So I thought that was the real crack in the foundation. Paul DePodesta leaving was also strange because it was like, you've been around the organization for 10 years and now, like, in the middle of the year, you're going to go run the Rockies? Like, you couldn't turn around this dumpster fire, which has been the biggest in the National Football League. So you're going to go try to turn around that dumpster fire, which has been the biggest in the MLB for quite some time. So, like, that whole thing was strange. Now that we've got the rumblings out there that Tommy Rees is the odds-on favorite to get hired at UCLA, and maybe this is his last game as the play caller for the Browns if they wanted to work quickly on that hire, like, I don't know. You had the Flacco trade. Now it sounds like if Rees leaves and DePodesta left, doesn't that start to feel like you got a little bit of like a mass exodus going on? Like, the entire thing, weird. I'm going to continue to use that word. It's weird. And the nice thing is that we do have a game to be played, and that if they win this game, it will be a really nice distraction. If Shedeur Sanders plays well, winning cures everything. But if they lose, we know that all of these little tiny minute things get put under the magnifying glass because you got 3 wins.
Yeah, and last thing before we talk about how winnable this game is, it does make me wonder the divide that exists between the thought process of people in that building that thought Shedeur was going to be good and potentially be your best quarterback on the roster, and the people in that building that thought Dylan Gabriel was going to be your best quarterback on the roster. Because there was somebody in that building that believed in Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if it was Andrew Berry. I don't know. I doubt it was Kevin Stefanski because Gabriel's always kind of felt like his guy.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just Jimmy Haslam right at the top. Maybe all of the reports saying that's a Berry pick. Maybe it was Jimmy the whole time. Somebody in that building believed in Shedeur Sanders enough to be like, just draft the kid. Like, I put the draft in your hands. He's here in the 5th round. Just draft him. And it's maybe led to a divide the entire way. And this is kind of top down, the entire divide kind of expanding, but somebody winning that battle right now, just being like, he looks good, we're playing him, we are committing to the idea that I thought he looked good, or we thought he looked good, we're gonna run with this.
You know why? Because, like, in the working world, when you've got these decisions that are being made, and somebody is so adamantly for, so adamantly against something, you remember it in the working world, and it's easy to go back in hindsight and look at somebody and be like, you were pretty dug in on that Dylan Gabriel guy, and you kind of look like a buffoon now. And I'm not saying that's what's going on, but if you're Jimmy Haslam and you're a Shedeur Sanders supporter during the draft, like, say you're one of these people that believe that was a Jimmy Haslam draft pick, and that you kind of jumped over your guys and Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry who are sold on this Dylan Gabriel character, and you said, no, we're going to get Shedeur as well. That's been going on since April. So now if you're Jimmy Haslam, you're the boss of these two individuals, you're kind of having your I told you so moment, but it's like, I told you so, and now it's too late because I told you so, and now look at where we're at. We've got 3 wins. We wasted 5 weeks with Dylan Gabriel. Why? It says something, because in the working world, you always will have your I told you so moment, and somebody always ends up looking pretty dumb in those moments.
Somebody might end up without a job from that moment too.
Right.